Is this you? Is this Kevin Ash? Can you hear me?
I can. How you doing, Theo?
I'm doing good, man. Good to see you.
You too, man.
So,
I didn't know that. I didn't see the Zoom link, so I was like, is he
I
gonna call me? What's gonna happen?
I sent it like 20 minutes ago.
Oh, missed
So
that.
that's my bad.
That's all
Um,
good.
Thank you for doing this. I have a free Zoom account, so we have less than 30 minutes, which is good for your 7 o'clock plans.
That works, man.
So, and then all good. Like this is very chill. This is about experimenting and having conversations. And if there's something good comes out of it, I'm gonna maybe chop it up and put it on the page. Maybe we go listen to a Dynamite podcast. Maybe you're the next Pat McAfee.
Maybe, man.
You
Maybe.
know,
I'm just
you know,
excited. I'm just excited to talk about the Lions in the playoffs because that's never really happened before.
let's start right there. Tell me, how does a young man from California, and you can go into your origin, how did you become a Lions fan? And tell me the horror stories of being a Lions fan up until this point.
Yeah, it's poor choices mostly is how I became a Lions fan. I've never been to the state of Michigan in my entire life. When I was in second or third grade, I started watching the NFL, and Barry Sanders was my guy. And I think I had maybe 4 years until he retired, and then it was pretty turbulent waters. But it's tough being a Lions fan because I know like other sports teams have gone through some crappy years. It's always
Right.
it's even with Stafford, they had good teams, but then they'd flame out in the playoffs. And just losing is one thing, but the way they would lose games, I think Aaron Rodgers has beat them on a Hail Mary twice. You have the Megatron week one against the Bears where he catches the touchdown, rolls over, slams the ball on the ground to stand up, and so somehow the refs were like, no, he didn't have control. It's like, okay, well,
I was at the
um,
sports book in Reno when that play happened, and there was a lot of people who disagreed with you. They were saying that was not a catch because it helped
because they
them
had money
win
on
the
the Bears,
belt.
probably. Yeah.
Totally objective arbiters of the game.
I was at a Sonoma State soccer game when that happened. So I didn't actually see it live. I was just watching it on with Tyler Lobe on the computer, and they said caught, and then they overturned it, and I didn't see the highlight for like an hour. So
Yeah, that was a weird play. The Lions have definitely gotten hosed a lot, including by some of their own players. And it's interesting. You could talk probably about the culture. Like Barry Sanders, obviously, kind of a controversial figure, at least for a while after he retired early. I remember hearing stories about like him getting heckled in Target when he'd go. Like it wasn't this revered thing. He was a guy who was seen as he quit on his team, and fans really held that against him. This weekend, he's going to be one of the
honorary captains, him and Joe Montana.
honorary, yeah, two
Yeah,
two legends.
yeah, absolutely. What a tandem that is.
There's not a lot of history between these two teams. I
I
was
had to do
trying to.
research because you told me like what like memorable games, and I was like, I have zero recollection of any memorable games. So I did you probably did some research too.
Well, I actually have two games that I did remember organically, and the
Cool.
first was a Monday night game. I think this was during the Wayne Fontana era, still Barry Sanders, probably like '96, December of '96, and I remember that game vividly because Steve Young actually outrushed Barry Sanders that night. I think Barry was held to like 36 yards on the ground, and Steve might have had like 42 or something. Had a couple good scrambles. The only other game, I mean, I remember a few other matchups, but the only other real memorable moment that comes up for me is in Jim Harbaugh's first season as Niners head coach. The Niners off to a good start. They're 4-1. They go to Detroit and they win a tight game. And he's so excited. He runs off the sideline. He goes to Jim Schwartz, who's the head coach at the time, and he gives him this big slap on the back.
I
And it
remember
was
that. It
created
was
kind of a beef.
controversial.
Controversial.
Yeah.
Jim
I,
Harbaugh. Imagine Jim Harbaugh being controversial.
yeah, I remember that. I had actually forgotten that until you brought it up. Yeah. That was a good one. The two so I had to I think I blacked out or blocked out a lot of them, a lot of the Lions games in the past.
Smart.
So
It's a good
the two that
strategy.
I had to research them. One I was alive for, and it was the first game of the Dan Campbell era, which the Lions actually lost. It was week one of 21. So you guys are coming off a runner up in the Super Bowl, basically. And the Lions are coming out with this new head coach that was going to bite people's kneecaps off. And that was basically where we were.
Did
And
he cry that game? Just do you know if he cried that night?
He might have, dude. I don't know. He though you guys were rolling. I mean, it was, and then the fourth quarter, the Lions, the first game with Goff kind of stormed back, and it was probably a combination of like you guys took your foot off the gas a little because you were cruising and it's week one, like why risk injuries? But as a Lions fan, it was kind of cool because it was like, okay, like this team has fight. Usually we just get down and it's like, okay, let's turn the TV off or switch to a different game. So that was kind of cool. And then the other game, neither of us were alive for. That was the last time that the Lions won a championship. It was 1957. The only reason that I brought this one up is because of the possible symmetry that could happen here. The Lions played the Niners in the game before the NFL championship, before it was the Super Bowl. And then in the NFL championship, they went on to beat the Browns, who the Browns then obviously since relocated to Baltimore, and they're the Ravens. So like it still kind of lines up. I really would be shocked if the Lions win against the Niners and then the Ravens. That would just be like an insane run, but whatever.
Well, and that game was played at Kezar Stadium in San Francisco, right?
I didn't look that far into it. Probably.
Yeah, we'll have the producers fact check us. Well, Tony Reale check our errors here after this. Yeah, there is some nice symmetry possibilities. What do you think? To you personally, what would a win, just getting to the Super Bowl, is like such a remarkable accomplishment? We forget about that in this era of like you have to win. If you don't win, it's a failure. Just being Super Bowl would mean a lot to an organization like the Lions. What it would mean to you as a fan?
Well, I mean, every step from last week on is kind of uncharted waters for me as a fan, anyways. And I will say, just as a quick aside, I'm not a fan of the NFL playoffs. I am. Obviously, they're super entertaining, but as a fan where you're waiting for the next game, to wait a week, do you know how torturous it is? I'm used to baseball. It's like, okay, we got maybe a day off and then you play, or basketball, you got a couple. I've been reading news stories and it's only Thursday. It's like, I still got to wait 3 more days before we play this game. So I'm excited. I think a win would be just insane for, I assume, the city of Detroit. For me, it's weird because like I don't have anyone to celebrate, with. It's just like high five. All right, good job. And we're moving on. But it would be just a Super Bowl appearance would be. Never in a million years did I think that the Lions would even be at this stage, let alone possibly in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think if when we met, probably like 2008 or 2009, you probably would have put the Seawolves, the Sonoma State Seawolves, ahead of the Lions as possible Super Bowl contenders.
Absolutely. And I always made a point, on the off chance that the Lions were ever relevant one day, to let people know that I was a Lions fan, because I did not want to be accused of being a bandwagoner. So I let them know, like, I am a Lions fan. And he says, that's too bad. I'm sorry.
That's really a shocking amount of optimism for a Lions fan. But you were like, just maybe they won't suck one day.
Strange things happen. You hang around long enough, something happens, right?
Yeah. Let's shift focus a little bit to the 49ers, because I just said that getting to the Super Bowl is a remarkable accomplishment, something that should be celebrated by any fan base. Now, the Niners, on the other hand, they've got this window and it's closing. They're going to be in similar salary cap purgatory with a lot of talented players who are going to need to get paid. From just your NFL fans' perspective, the Niners, they kind of need this one. The pressure's on them, right?
Big time. And you probably won't like this comparison, and you'll probably argue. I have told a lot of my friends that are Niner fans, because they're also Giants fans, you guys are the Dodgers, essentially. Like without the COVID ring, because every year it depends where the expectation is. That's why we're playing with house money. Like every Lions fan, if we lose on Sunday, it was a successful season. For you guys, it's Super Bowl or bust, and they're loaded. So it's like now or never. And you're right, there's some guys aging, and then there's some salary cap issues that are going to come up. So in a different sports sense, I know the pressure, like I said, or the pressure's not, fans aren't under pressure, but like the tension,
Totally.
So yeah, this is big. I mean, the Niners need, especially when you watch teams like the Rams, who are pretty bad always, and then they had a year where they were okay, and then they won it.
Right.
Yeah.
I think the Niners were involved in that season too. I don't remember. Oh yeah, that Jaquiski Tart missed interception.
Yeah.
10-point lead in the fourth quarter. Yeah. So there's some skeletons in the closet with the Niners too. I mean, Shanahan hasn't won the big game. I don't fully blame him for what happened in Atlanta when he was the OC because he's not the head coach. Though when
Right.
he
It's tough to
was,
have your fingerprints on that one at all, though.
it did, yeah, exactly. It did seem like they were very aggressive when they could have been much more conservative with that lead. Obviously, they had a 10-point lead with 7 minutes to go in Super Bowl against the Chiefs. A little bit
Yeah.
of that is you chalk it up to Patrick Mahomes is doing Patrick Mahomes things. The defense got a little tired. You still don't want to lose games when you have a 10-point lead with 7 minutes left, let alone the Super Bowl.
In front of Shakira and J-Lo, too. Like, I mean, that's
Was
just
that the
tough.
Shakira and
I'm
J-Lo?
pretty sure it was, yeah.
You could have told me it was like the Who, and I wouldn't have. I wouldn't have.
I never forget a thing about Shakira. That's the thing.
Did you know that her song from Zootopia, "Try Anything," was actually about tax evasion? Well, workshopping
She
that
did
bit.
try it. She did try it.
Tried everything. Good for her. And then she tried it again. Like honestly,
Well, that's
kudos.
how you get better at things, Theo. You have to keep it's repetition. You have to
Right,
practice. You know,
right. Yeah.
she'll get
You've
there.
been watching a lot of Sesame Street, I can tell. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to dwell too much on what could go wrong for the Niners. Obviously, Trent Williams is not going to be here forever. Brock Purdy's not going to be making $800,000 a year forever. Christian McCaffrey, running backs, they have a really short shelf life in this league.
Yeah.
Ayuk, Debo, Kittle. I mean, those guys are going to be hard to keep around and pay for more than 2 or 3 years, and maybe we're lucky if that happens. So
It does feel like this is the most complete 49ers team that they've had during this generation, I guess.
even going back to last season, it kind of once they got CMC, it kind of felt like it reminded me of those early '90s teams that you hear John Madden talking about, like so many weapons.
Yeah,
It just
that's
like
true. I almost not. I don't know how else to phrase this, but I almost felt bad for Shanahan because it's like, how do you utilize everything?
yeah.
You know, and it's like I don't think you can, and that's kind of what the Niners do. Like one game, Kittle will have 3 touchdowns, then one game CMC goes off, and then it's
Mhm.
always like one guy because everybody else is drawing so much attention. You can't possibly defend the whole group.
Do you have any predictions on MVP or who's your MVP of the NFL this season?
Uh, I don't think they'll give it to Purdy. So I'm gonna like, regardless of where the numbers are, I don't think Purdy will get it,
Yeah,
just because
I don't either.
how the media talks about him. Could
I'm
be
not sure he's
CMC.
I'm not sure he's was the MVP. He was super valuable. He's
He
had a
he
great
had he had a
season.
couple bad games late that I think tanked his MVP stock. I can see CMC in the. I think it'll be Lamar Jackson.
I think Lamar will win it. Christian
Yeah,
McCaffrey to me is the most valuable player. Once he came on board, it was similar, using like a basketball analogy, it was similar to Steph Curry and kind of a gravitational pull that he does to a defense. The same thing with McCaffrey. Like, you can put him anywhere on the field, and the defense has to pay attention to him, has to respect his ability to catch the ball out of the backfield, out of the slot, bubble screens. Obviously, you can also run it right up the middle for and take it to the house. So
that's what
um,
worries me about Sunday is because there's that, and then you also have Debo, who's basically the same thing, just more of a receiver but he runs the ball too.
yeah,
And the Lions have given up the most yards through the air this year. So they've actually given up the most yards through the air out of the last like 10 seasons, or second most. And the team that had the most, ironically, was the Bengals that lost to the Rams in the Super Bowl.
yeah.
So the Lions are like historically bad at defending pass defense.
I'm feeling better. I'm feeling better.
Yeah, I don't know if that helps at all. So
It's not going to rain, which I think is good for both teams. People are making a big deal about it not being in a dome. I don't think that's a huge deal because the weather's supposed to be okay. Maybe you're a slightly slower team on turf or on grass and would be on turf, but give me a
I think it's
prediction.
the first game the Lions have played outside because the last game of the season they played Minnesota. I'm trying to think who they played before then, but they've been in a dome for a while. So even if there's a breeze, it might throw them off. You know.
Sure. 49er faithful, blow the whistles,
Yeah,
make it
that's Santa
windy.
Clara air, man. You know.
Well, give me a prediction final score.
I mean, I think I have to predict that the Lions will win. Like I can't sit here and tell you that they won't. So I'm gonna go 29-28, and it's either gonna come down to Dan Campbell just going for two, because why the hell not? Or a Jake
Dan
Moody
Gamble.
missed field goal. Dan Gamble, exactly. Or a Jake Moody missed field goal, because that seems to be a thing that happens.
Yeah, I keep forgetting about that guy.
That's the only weak spot really is the kicker.
Yeah, here's the thing. He made the second one,
Right.
which was clutch, more clutch than, kicking the first one a little bit low. I'll give him some grace. He had some jitters on the first playoff kick, got it a little bit low. They got their hands up. I think he's going to be okay. I think that definitely could come down to something like that. I think both offenses are really good. I think we're going to see Purdy for 30. Niners are going to be able to move the ball. Their defense has not been great. Chase Young has not done a ton. Nick Bosa's, it's hard for me to determine how he's impacting the game because I'm just a fan. So I look at stats, and
I
he
think
doesn't
he
have a
gets
lot of
doubled a
sacks.
lot. So I think Bosa more than Chase Young. He's demanding attention, so he's not like doing anything other than occupying two guys. Whereas Chase Young has just not done what I thought he was going to do. And the Lions were linked to him a few times at the start of the season and then at the trade deadline. So I was bummed that they didn't get him. And then obviously the Niners got him, and he really hasn't done what I thought he would do.
Yeah, Eric Armstead's been more valuable and more critical, and hopefully he's healthy. But it is coming off their first game in like 51 weeks where they give up 100 yards to a single rusher, and the Packers. I think the Packers look very good. I think they are very good offensively.
Packers are going
But
to be a problem for a while, unfortunately. They just don't. I don't have any sympathy for Packers fans ever because they've never had a bad quarterback.
yeah, you'd have to go back a ways. I mean, I
Not
don't
in my
think
lifetime, you
I
know.
can even I don't even remember who was the quarterback before Brett Favre. I'm not even sure I knew the Packers were a team before Brett Favre, to be
Yeah,
honest. That was
yeah,
like
I couldn't tell you.
1992 when he got traded there, and yeah,
Yeah, they're good and they're very young. That's the one thing about the Lions is worst case scenario they lose this game, and it's almost like you have this really young team that got pretty close, and now they've got the experience. You don't want it to be like a New York Jets. So like didn't the Jets make the AFC Championship with Sanchez one year, and then they
2 years
never,
in a row.
yeah, and then they just fell off. You
Yeah.
kind of hope that they keep building on whatever they've got going.
Well, Rex Ryan was really into feet at that time in his life, and he probably was distracted.
He's always looking
Um,
down, you know.
I was trying to work Rex Ryan's foot fetish into any conversation with financial advisors.
Yeah, I try to
Uh,
do that with clients, and it doesn't hit. But
you got to
one
work in the music business; it's a lot
day,
different. You can say almost anything you want on a meeting. Uh,
sounds fun.
Anything fun to add? Anything that I missed? Anything that I sent you that link about the guy who's eating raw chicken? Did you get a chance to check that out?
I did, and I like a fool. I had chicken for dinner, and I cooked it like just a nerd, you know. Uh,
Such a dork.
I don't need to be eating it raw. Uh, anything?
People like
I
that.
would say I think the X factor for you guys is going to be Ayuk because I assume Cam Sutton is going to be on him, and if you're not familiar with Cam Sutton, he's terrible. So he wears number one, and he's the opposite. He has given up more yards through the air than any corner in the league. Um, so about twice as much as who's number 7 on you? Travarius Ward.
Shavarius.
So
Do you
he's
have like a chart next to you? Are
I
you
do
looking at
my
the
buddy gets like the media guide, so I had the roster in
that's
front. I was
awesome.
looking through some stuff.
Shavarius Ward. That's like a Key and Peele name, by the way.
Yeah, one of those Travarius Ward, Hingle McCringleberry. Yeah, I think this feels like one of those games that they played 10 times. The Niners probably win 7 of them, you know. But you only get one, so all we need is one.
All you need
And
is one.
Dan Campbell is the perfect coach for this group because I don't know that he would work on other groups because they're so young that everybody's bought in. They're just like, yeah, let's do it. They trust him. He cares about that. Like it's just a real tight group, which is fun.
And we'll see what it does, 4 or 5 years down the road. I think the Harbaugh analogy is pretty good here because he was kind of that raw personality, and it works at first, especially when you got talent on the roster. But after 3 or 4 years of hearing that same stuff and the who's got it better than us,
Yeah,
it's like, hey, we're 8-8, Jim. Like,
well, and that's the thing too is like if you make it to the NFC Championship game or the Super Bowl or however far the Lions go, if you fall short and then you go the next year and you fall short, and then the third year you're falling, it's like the rah needs more to it, you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
So I am so happy with Dan Campbell. I hope they keep being successful and they retain him for a very long time. But sports things change quick, so who knows?
Who is the your least favorite head coach in Lions history?
Uh, Patricia probably, and he was
Yeah,
recent.
yeah.
I really liked this. I don't know if this makes me like a dumbass, but I really liked Rod Marinelli, and I still defended him after the 0-16 season. I was like, no, I think he's a good guy. Also Marty Morningweg,
Okay.
because just for the one, they were going to overtime. I think it was against the Eagles. They won the coin flip, and he chose what side he wanted to defend instead of receive the kick, and then the Eagles marched down the field and scored. And then he tried to
Well,
defend himself afterwards by saying all the points had been scored at that end. It's like, yeah, but all the points have also been scored with the ball. So like maybe try that.
I think he was a former Niners OC. He was,
He was, and then he
at,
and then he was. I don't think he ever got a head coaching job again after the
yeah.
Lions.
Well, my favorite Lions head coach was Steve Mariucci because I still think he got a little bit of a raw deal in San
I like
Francisco.
Mariucci. That was a cool. That
Uh,
was a cool hire for the
it was a
Lions.
cool hire, and he seems to be doing good. He gets to talk for a living, and it's easier than coaching for sure.
He did he. Who was the coach? Was it Seifert the last time you guys won? It wasn't
Yeah,
Mariucci, was it?
no, it was Mariucci.
Okay.
Mariucci went to a conference championship against the Packers, lost before replay was instituted. There was two turnovers in that game, or two big turnover, one big turnover that Gary Plummer recovered that they didn't call a fumble. And then J.J. Stokes, I think, was pushed out of the end zone on what should have been a touchdown, and it was a sloppy, muddy game. Packers had our number at that time, and yeah, so Seifert in January of '95, Super Bowl 29. I was a freshman in high school and on top of the world.
Who's so outside of the division? Who is your least favorite team? You want the Niners to beat them more than anybody.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't know if I have that same vitriol in football. I'm trying to think. 'Cause I'm sure I hate somebody. I guess it's you said the division, and it's really the Seahawks, but it's more specifically it's Russell Wilson's Seahawks.
Yeah. No, but
Um,
like outside the division. So like not because you guys seem to run into the Packers all the time, but lately you've had their number. And then there's
yeah,
always the Cowboys, but
I
it's
guess
the
it's the
Cowboys.
Cowboys. I think it's the
Yeah.
Cowboys just because they've done so little for so long, and they still act like this American
Fans
team
just don't
nonsense.
stop talking. They could be like
And
8-8, and it's like, okay, you're
either does
still
ESPN.
yeah,
Like
that's
you
it.
listen to any national sports talk, and it's the Cowboys, Cowboys and LeBron. Like no, I'm done. I'm done with you.
Yep. Yeah, that's the weird thing as a Lions fan. I don't hate anybody. Like, because we've never, like, nobody's ever broken our hearts before. So you guys have a unique opportunity to
Yeah.
cement yourselves as like the most hated team in Lions fandom.
Oh, I think the Niners are they're the villain this Sunday. I think most of America is like
Oh, for
the
sure. I think
Detroit Darlings.
same with the Chiefs. Like, I think people are just tired of it. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, the Chiefs have a couple rings, but like you guys are always there, and you've eliminated a lot of people's teams along the way. People are tired of seeing the Niners. Nobody's pissed at Detroit.
No.
Detroit's never made anybody upset. So everybody's like, yeah, let's go for these guys.
Yeah, a lot of empathy going towards Detroit. Yeah, at least the Niners don't have Taylor Swift, Brittany Mahomes, and Jackson Mahomes.
Yeah, no,
Uh,
that's a tough trio right
so
there.
if it comes down to the Super Bowl, those two teams again, I think the Niners will regain sort of the public money, and they'll be behind us. But we're a long ways away. Game is on Sunday, like 72 hours from now. Where are you gonna watch?
So there's this bar that's like it's not even a sports bar. It's just a bar that's a block and a half away, and I go there often enough, and I've watched the first two Lions games there. So I'm like, well, I just keep going to this. So last time I was there was because the Lions played the noon game. There was maybe 7 people in the bar, and I do this thing. One of the Lions receivers, Jamison Williams, he's second year out of Alabama, and so his name's Jamison. So every
Roll
time he
Tide.
catches, yeah, yeah. So every time he catches a pass, I just take a sip. I don't do a full shot because if he goes off for like 12 catches one game, I'll die.
Yeah,
Like I got to remember. So
that's a savvy move.
it was not the first time I've had whiskey at noon, but I didn't want to have it that early, but you got to do what you got to do for the team.
And it's a weekend. Yeah, yeah, many hands make light work, I think is what Dan Campbell would have said if you were
Something like that.
drinking
Yeah.
whiskey in front of
He
him.
gets it.
He
Where
gets
are you
it.
watching?
To be determined. I watch a lot of games with my mom. Sports has kind of always been our thing. that
Nice.
we bond over. And so I know she would love to watch it. I got to figure out what the rest of the family wants to do. And yeah, yeah, I might just watch it on Zoom with you. Maybe we should just live stream our reactions to the game. You can set it up at the bar. I'm sure it's fine.
Yeah, they won't
Um,
care.
anything my recording is going to run out here because I have the free Zoom. Anything you want to plug or shout out before we get cut off by Zoom?
No, I'm just excited. I'm happy to be here as a Lions fan. Just excited about it.
If anybody sees this and they love Kevin Ash and they love your takes and they want your financial advice or your life insurance, how can they reach you? Find you on Instagram,
Sure.
LinkedIn?
Yeah, LinkedIn. I don't check my LinkedIn. I should be better at that, but I have a LinkedIn.
Okay, you just Google search Kevin Ash if you want any financial
I
advice
look like
or
this in the picture.
take a screenshot, Google image search him, and then he can make you probably as wealthy as you already are.
Correct. Yeah, we won't
Right.
lose. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's about conserving.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how we do.
Awesome. Hey man, thank you very much. Enjoyed the conversation. Glad that I have your number now, so I'm just gonna text you instead of DMing you on Instagram,
Yeah, absolutely.
like grown-ups, like grown men.
I like that.
All right, man.
Hey, I would say good luck this weekend, but no,
May the better team win.
I'll take it. Well, I don't know about that because I think you
All right.
I'll see you,
Good luck,
Theo.
man. Take it easy, Kevin.